Hello everyone, welcome back. Today's stories are from entitled people. Story 1, he tried to take my airline seat, and lost. I was traveling to Las Vegas to meet up with some friends, and pre-booked my seat. With this airline, they charge extra for certain seats. I chose a window seat with extra leg room due to my disability, which cost me an additional $45. When boarding, there was a man in my seat with another in the L seat. The middle was open. I checked my seat number, and then politely told the man he was in my seat and asked for him to move. I am a petite female, and both men were about 6 feet tall and over 200 pounds when both opened their mouths. It definitely appeared like they both were used to using their size to get their way. The man in the aisle immediately told me that the man at the window didn't have to move, and I could sit in the middle. After all, he said, I shouldn't make a scene about it. That really pissed me off. I didn't raise my voice, and was very polite. I said I wasn't making a scene, but was asking nicely for the seat I paid for. That's when he stood up, and attempted to physically intimidate me. But here is the thing, I worked in frontline healthcare. I am used to men attempting to use their size and mouth to intimidate, and this behavior does not work with me. So, I decided to take another tactic. I turned my head to the man in my seat, and told him that I would make him a deal. He gives me $50 cash, and I will give him my seat. I told him I paid an additional $45 for the seat, and with tax it should be around $50. He gives the money, and the seat would be his. This is when he turned to me in shock and said, "You want me to pay you $50 for your seat?" I answered, "So you are admitting that you knew this wasn't your seat? I am going to call the airline staff, and they can take you to your seat. After all, I booked this seat due to me having a disability, which is true, and you are trying to steal it." Everyone around us turned to look at him, and they did not have kind looks on their faces. He turned 14 shades of red, and moved to the middle seat. He pulled his hoodie over his head, and sulked the rest of the flight. His friend did the same. The moral of this story is simple. Do not use size and gender to bully others. It may just backfire on you, and make your next flight a lot less comfortable. Story 2. People stealing plane seats and getting told off for it are some of my favorite stories on Reddit. With the increase of plane seat bandits, most likely due to the airlines almost making it a requirement to pay for seats if you want to sit next to your plane partner, I've been half expecting to run into one since me and my husband travel a lot for work. Well, it finally happened and it was fun. Me and my husband always buy plane seats towards the back of the plane. As we stroll down we see a lady with a young son, 11 or 12, sitting in our seats. They were both deep in their phones when I told her she was in our seats. We had to wake up at 3 o'clock to drive to the airport, and we didn't really sleep so I was not in the mood for this. She smiles and tells us that they weren't seated together so the stewardess told her they could sit here. She most definitely didn't. I smile back and say we paid for these seats so we would like to sit here. She keeps smiling her stiff smile and points to other empty seats behind us and asks if we wouldn't mind sitting in one of them since they are already settled and comfortable. Would it even matter? Well, I said, yes, since the plane is still boarding so these might all be reserved and it really messes with the system if people sit in random seats. She is starting to lose her smile and says if there aren't seats available after the plane is finished boarding they would move then. I am not confrontational and am usually a people pleaser so I'm struggling to stand up for myself but I'm so proud for doing it anyways. Meanwhile, my husband is struggling between boarding passengers to get the flight attendant. I sigh and with a half smile said I'm sorry but I just want to sit down and not stand in the hallway blocking people to see if maybe there are empty seats when I paid for our seats. And besides, I would like the police to be able to identify our bodies by seat number in case the plane crashes and our families want to bury our remains. The kid's face, which has been glued to his phone this entire time, shoots up in shock and he looks between me and his mom. It was delicious. She has a bewildered look on her face. There is silence for 5 seconds before she packs up her stuff and pokes her son to move. I keep smiling sweetly and thanked her and plump myself down as my husband returns with a flight attendant. I told her everything is fine and told my husband what happened. We laughed and I'm pretty sure the mom heard. I didn't look back, but I think I'm not mistaken of feeling laser stare in the back of my head. Luckily the flight was only 3 hours so I didn't need to walk past for the loo. Story 3. My husband and I were at a casual restaurant we go to a lot and the place sounded like a TV is playing. I looked over and 3 tables away is a couple eating. The woman had her phone propped against her water glass and was having a very loud conversation on the phone while she ate. I could hear everything. How frickin' rude. So I got up and went over to the offending table. I put my face over the table so the person in the phone could see me. Me, hi. How are you? I figured since I could hear the conversation at my table, I would like to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Nancy. So nice to meet you. Then I went back to my table. I was very disappointed that they discontinued their conversation shortly after. Story 4. I was in Walmart. Woman in line at the pharmacy was talking to her sister on the speaker, so everybody could hear. I very loudly said, "Does your sister know she's on speakerphone?" She didn't, but she did learn that she was. The woman in line goes to me, "You're an a-hole, you know that?" And all I said was yes. End of conversation. Story 5. I had a coworker who exploded in the most red-faced, spit flying from her mouth screaming fit at an entire locker room full of her coworkers once. She came in at shift change time, so all of first shift cleaning up to leave, while second shift is getting their PPE from their lockers, sat in the bathroom stall and answered her phone on speaker. It was her doctor telling her she had chlamydia. One of our less friendly coworkers said something to her as soon as she came out of the stall and she just went off, calling all of us eavesdropping BS, and just a whole verbal diarrhea of insults flying at everyone. Story 6. I was on the train for my morning commute one day. The woman behind me had the volume on her phone so loud I could hear it even though it wasn't on speaker. She was talking to a friend, probably, and the topic was the commuting woman's V. After 5 minutes of listening to her descriptions of various discharges and problems she had, I turned around, made eye contact and said something like, "Would you please turn your phone volume down and lower your effing voice? No one here wants to know so much about your V. In fact, the only people who cares about your V are you and whoever wants to get a D or fingers inside it." She then realized she was inside a quiet car and everyone had overheard her. She got off at the next stop, bright red. This was also like 12 years ago, so I can't tell you what I said verbatim, but that's pretty close. Story 7. My entitled brother threw a massive fit, just because he was mad I bought a house. Yeah, I'm aware of several similar stories involving entitled family members wanting houses they have no claim to. But I guess this things really happens. And it's no picnic when it does. I suddenly became a homeowner some time ago because friend of mine's grandfather was moving to Florida. And his house was ripe for picking. I knew the old man well. R.I.P., he passed a few months later from a sudden stroke. Anyway, he offered the house and property to me for $200K. I practically ran to the bank to apply for the loan. The house is a manufactured home from the 80s. But it was remodeled repeatedly by the former owner, and has a separate garage building. The home and property could have gone for more. But he offered the house to me because he knew I'd take care of it. I had $30K saved that made a good down payment. And I was happy to leave my apartment. I'd wanted to eventually move out of there after what my cheating ex did anyway. But that's a story for another time. As for my brother, well, he went bonkers when he found out I bought a house. He had this repeated history of copycatting me for the past decade. But there was no way in hell he could copycat buying a house with his terrible credit and inconsistent income. And he got in an argument with me over how I was just trying to make him look bad by doing something he couldn't. No, I just wanted a house. And the price was too good to refuse. Then he told me I should have turned it down because he had no good reason. I could practically see his screws getting looser with every stupid excuse he made as to why I shouldn't have done it. But I pointed out all those excuses were just because I did something he currently can't. And when I bought the house, it had nothing to do with him. I just wanted to be a homeowner for the security and extra space. I finally don't have to store my camper at my parents' house. And I have a garage that I can store stuff and tinker in. I bought a camping cot, he bought a camping cot, went to the gym, he went to the gym, bought good booze, he bought good booze, or stole it from me. I bought a new TV, B bought a new TV, I bought a truck, he bought a truck, I bought a camper, he bought a camper, I bought a used portable DVD player, he bought a used portable DVD player, I went camping in a specific place, he went camping in that specific place, I bought a house, he. 404 error. Insert tea kettle noises and Benny Hill chase. He also acted like a complete child towards me when he built his mini Ram thing. He actually confronted me and said it was cooler than my boring Tundra, because it was something original. I swear, he did the dumbest mods to that vehicle. Like putting twist studs in the suspension coils to raise the ride height. Well, after weeks of openly fuming about me being a homeowner, my brother suddenly acted like he had another brilliant idea. He wanted to move in with me. I laughed at him. Then he ended up demanding I rent one of my rooms to him. And for only $200 a month, utilities included, because he shouldn't have to pay any more than that since we're family. He flipped his lid when I said F no. Then he got our parents involved again. Only this time they actually sided with him at first. Though it was mainly our mother. She and my brother showed up demanding I let my brother move in. And my brother had a poo-eating grin on his face that I could tell he was thinking he was getting his way thanks to Mommy Dearest. I said F no. To both their faces, and my mother cried that I was using foul language to her and being an a-hole when I had the space now. I called my dad, and he told my mom that he'd warned her I wouldn't do it. And to leave me the hell alone. Mom whined my brother was living out of his camper next to a shabby house he was renting space from. I said that wasn't my problem to fix. And my brother has proven countless times that he cannot be trusted. My brother was fuming to the point of being red with veins popping out. My mom tried one more time to convince me with tears. And that just made me angrier. I went on a rant that was something like this. Bro can't buy a house, so he wanted to invade mine. I refused to ever live with my brother again. I would sooner live in the woods without electricity than with him. He's intentionally irritating as all hell. And if I had him as a roommate, I just knew he'd steal my booze, take my stuff, and invade my privacy nonstop. Not effing happening. No matter how many tears Mom tries using on me. My mom broke down and finally conceded she'd never convince me after that rant. And she had to take my brother by the hand and leave with him because he initially refused to go, and kept begging her to turn back and make me let him move in. And then I yelled to him that it was a laugh that he called me a mama's boy before. Because he'd become exactly that. And this was just like the time he tried to get our mother to make me trade vehicles with him because he felt ashamed to be driving a minivan. He yanked away from Mom, then told me to go F myself and the horse I rode in on. I laughed and pointed out I didn't ride in on anything, because I was already home. But his rattlecan horse was waiting for him in the driveway. He flipped his lid again, and looked like his head was going to explode. But Mom got in front of him, and told him to just go. Then he drove off in his rattlecan Silverado without her. He'd driven her there. And then I had to take her home. While taking her home, I made things very clear with my mother over why I could never trust my brother again. And his life was not my burden to bear. And then told her how little my brother was offering for rent anyway. Which he'd conveniently not told her. Then, I later rented that same room to one of my best friends for $600 a month, and he pays for utilities. The other 2 rooms are my bedroom and a home office. There's an extra room in the separate garage too. So my mother tried to make me let my brother live in the garage instead. There's enough room in its storage room for a bedroom. Again I said F no. And that's since been turned into another friend's rented room with a bit of a plywood remodel. Yeah, I kinda rented both the spare bedroom and garage room out to friends out of spite. But I wasn't letting my brother live with me in any capacity. My brother later ended up having a complete meltdown in front of our parents over how he's the older brother. He should be the one who owns a house first. He's supposed to be successful, and I'm supposed to be the big loser in his shadow. Our dad poked him with his cane and told him that's not how life works, and they had a big argument. They told him to get out and not come back until he's cooled off and learned that he's just being a pointlessly jealous a-hole. Edit, I came home late to over 600 comments, and still more pouring in. Far too many for me to answer. So I'll clear some things up here. Yes, I am no contact with my brother. And he's NC with the rest of the family as well. I do have cameras inside and outside my home. And a dash cam too. My brother knows this, and has stayed the F away since he left town. I'm told I'm an a-hole too. Not arguing that, because it's true. I'm not exactly the nicest guy. But have someone like my brother in your life, and see how peachy you turn out. Some have mentioned to having siblings just like my brother. Sadly, I know very well people like him are increasingly common these days. My dad said a number of times that my brother probably would have ended up dead in an alley if he lived here 50 years ago with the way he behaves. As for our ages, I'm 30, and my brother is 32. I have not given my parents a spare key to my house. One is with a friend, and another is very cleverly hidden. My house is a manufactured home. But it's not in a trailer park, and has been significantly modified with new siding and a new roof, and has a separate garage building. The previous owner was a former general contractor, and he loved to build and repair. And yes, I do have good insurance. I keep seeing comments about a clock radio. Pardon me for not getting the reference. But I do own a digital alarm clock that has a built-in CD player. Currently plays Tina Turner's Proud Mary to wake me up. My brother and I were raised pretty evenly. He was always a jerk. But went full a-hole after moving out. But our mother didn't favor him. She chewed him out plenty. And she didn't normally side with his stupidity. She just wanted him to live in a better place than in a camper next to a house filled with potheads. Addition, my brother willingly moved into that camper. He was renting half a room in that house of potheads. Then convinced the landlord to let him live in his camper on the property for the same price instead. And he bragged about his camper a lot. Which he has a full gaming center in, complete with PlayStation. He only wanted to invade my house to piss me off and make his cost of living even lower. He also doesn't like camping nearly as much as me. He mainly liked just pissing me off by following me. He loved to make me miserable. In fact, he felt entitled to make me miserable. That's the kind of person he is. Do I have a restraining order against my brother? Not really. Just didn't bother. Because even if I did, it'd only be for like a year. And my brother wouldn't let something like that stop him if he was truly determined anyway. That's it for now. See you in the next post.